So good evening everybody and welcome to the Good Care Group's webinar in partnership with Chase de Vere. I am Rebecca Malone Robertson, the Registered Operations Manager at the Good Care Group Scotland, and as I've said, we've also got Catriona Smith here with us for the webinar from Chase de Vere. So this evening for our webinar, our agenda is I will give you just a very short introduction and overview of what we do at the Good Care Group, and then I will hand you over to Catriona Smith for the main part of main event to discuss long-term care and helping families make informed care funding decisions. And then hopefully at the end we'll have a short period of time for any questions and answers. A little bit of housekeeping. You'll have noticed when you came onto the webinar that your microphone will have been muted and cameras switched off. We are recording this event and this will be sent to you shortly after the webinar, hopefully tomorrow. And also we have a chat function, so on your screen you should be able to send any messages and questions that you have, and like I say, myself or Catriona can answer them hopefully at the end. So just a little bit from me about the Good Care Group. The Good Care Group Scotland are rated excellent for the quality of care by the Care Inspectorate, and we're also rated outstanding in all 5 domains by the CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission in England. We are a multi-award winning provider of live-in care in Scotland and across England, which we're very proud of. And we have a team of professional live-in carers who deliver one-to-one care in our clients' homes. We're a fully managed service with carers who are supervised by a dedicated care manager, and the dedicated care manager also provides support and care to the client also. And all our professional live-in carers are also directly employed by us, so we're not an agency, and they're also given full training by the Good Care Group also. A little bit about the conditions that we support and care for people in their own homes at the Good Care Group. So you can see on this slide various different conditions, and we pride ourselves very much on being a sort of dementia care specialist also, and we really do understand the importance of being able to live well with these conditions and being able to remain at home also. Next slide, please. So the Good Care Group services that we offer, so all on a live-in basis, from care and support, which is ongoing care, to our nurse-led service, which is overseen by our consultant Admiral Nurse, and also our occupational therapy-led service, led by or overseen by our in-house occupational therapist. We also provide respite care on a short basis of 2 weeks or anything up to 8 weeks. And we also provide care for couples that want to stay together at home, and also for palliative and end-of-life care. So a very brief overview of a little bit about how live-in care works. So the carer stays in the family or the client's home, one carer or a team on rotation. Normal rota pattern is for a carer to stay for 2 weeks and then another carer to come in for the following 2 weeks, and thereabout they swap back and forward. We ask that there's a spare room for the carer with a TV and internet access for administrative tasks, because all of our daily care notes and medication administration are all delivered over a digital platform. The carer needs to have a 2-hour break per day, so in any 24-hour period, but they also remain in the house for 22 hours out of that 24 to be on hand to their client. They do work to a daily average hours agreement, which is normally working 10 to 12 hours throughout the day. The client provides full board and meals for the carer, and the carer delivers the agreed care plan over the course of that day, which is put together by the dedicated care manager. As I said at the beginning, you will receive a copy of this presentation, so I'll not read through the sort of regulated versus unregulated, but there are other live-in providers in Scotland, many of which are not regulated, which means they are not registered with the Care Inspectorate. So like I say, if we are registered with the Care Inspectorate, so we are inspected yearly, and you can find our inspection report online. Just a couple of websites that you can visit if you were looking for care, live-in care. But again, I would always suggest to potential clients or people looking for care that they do go onto the Care Inspectorate website, where you can reassure yourself that the service or the provider that you're looking at is regulated, and also, like I say, read the inspection report for that provider. So there's just some information on how you can contact me after the webinar this evening. So without further ado, I shall pass you on to Catriona Smith from Chase de Vere. Thank you, Catriona.
Better start again because I forgot to unmute myself. Evening everybody, I'm going to turn my camera off just so you can get a bigger look at the slides. And I'll turn my camera on later on. Just bear with me. So what I'm going to discuss tonight is long-term care and decisions that you've got to make. This covers both whether you need care in your own house or whether you need care at a care home or a residential home. I'll cover off later on about Chase de Vere, who I work for, and also that I'm accredited to the Society of Later Life. The aspects we're going to look at tonight on the agenda is financial problems that you might come against and where to look for support, benefits that you could be able to receive, and again, where to look for those and who to get support from this. 6 ways that you can pay for care, and that's in regard to whether you do care in your own house or in a care home. Why Chase de Vere and SOLLA, and just 1 or 2 case studies to give you a flavour of what we look as a financial advisor. Financial problems that we see many clients coming against is more and more people having to pay for their own care, and that's because of the level of savings that clients have had over the years. And one of the questions we ask quite a lot is how can we avoid it? How can we avoid paying care? Why should we pay care? And as a financial advisor, you can never avoid paying care, as we're trying to mitigate it, trying to do things the right way to ensure that your loved ones get the care and support that they need, but also who's there to help and support you financially as well. Roughly about 44% of people entering care homes are self-fund themselves. Again, geographically over Scotland, depending on where you live, it really depends how much you've got to pay for care as well, because in Scotland, any assets over 28,500, your class is having to self-fund. Around 1 in 4 will always run out of cash and rely on state support. And the things you would look for in that is why and what do I have to do should I run out of cash? And I'll talk more about that later on. And the length of stay is typically 33% longer than a local authority funded. In my view, no rhyme nor reason why. It's the care homes on people in their own houses are all treated the same. So there's not any rhyme or reason why. It's just one of those statistics that we've got. So who pays for care and what impact does that have on you? The clients that I see are clients that it's got to a stage where they have put mum and dad into a home, or they need help in their own house. It's never thought about in advance. It creeps up on them, and it's not one of the things you can really plan for too much in advance, because it's that case that you're thinking, I hope I don't have to go into a home. I hope I don't need care. I want to remain independent. So it can be a very stressful and emotional time. but also it's where do I start to seek for help? Who should I speak to? How much information do I need to know? Are they going to ask me absolutely everything? And a lot of my clients, I've always thought it was a taboo topic. It's why? Why do I need to know as much? Why has it happened to me? Where do I go for help? So it's of who do you trust, cost implications, and that's what I'm going to go through tonight, is to give you an idea of where you go and how much help and support that you might need. So as I said earlier, if you've got assets of more than £28,500, then you are classed as having to self-fund. Now that £28,500 is on an individual. So if two people live in a house and one needs care, they assess that individual. So it's every individual who has more than £28,500 will be assessed to self-fund. That will include your house, your bank accounts, any national savings and investments, pension bonds, stocks and shares, ISAs, premium bonds. It's absolutely everything they take into account for £28,500. The other one you've got is, if you're over the age of 65 and you need help and you are looking for assistance for cash, if you're staying in your own house and you need day or night assistance, you may qualify for the lower rate of £59.70 per week. If you need day and night assistance, it's £89.15 per week, and that is looked at every year, and it usually increases every year. It's not means tested, which means they don't look how much money you've got in your bank. It's basically available to anyone over the age of 65 who needs assistance, and it's tax-free. Now, a lot of people that I speak to think they're not entitled to any state benefits because they've worked all their days. My view on that is, even though you've worked all your days, you're still entitled to look into it to see if you qualify for any state benefit assistance. So if you are over the age of 65, or your mum and dad's over the age of 65, and they're getting help, or they're needing a bit of help in their house, and they need it either day or night, or both, they may qualify for extra financial assistance. Moving on to if you need care in your own home or in a care home, slightly more in depth here, but if you are in, talking like a care home, and the government will give you £180 per week towards your care home, no matter how much you have in savings and no matter your income. However, if you earn receipt of attendance allowance, you will not receive both. You will lose your attendance allowance and you'll get your personal care allowance. If you need nursing care on top of that, and that's like medical assistance, or you can't get out of bed, so you need assistance all the time, you'd qualify for an additional £81 per week. So that means you could get a total of £261 a week off the state towards your care, and that is whether you're in a care home or in your own house. As long as you are receiving care, you're entitled to that. What they also take into account is, if you need items for yourself, whether it be shampoo or chiropodist or hairdresser, you're allowed to keep £28.75 per week towards those items. One thing I would say is, everything was going towards the age of 65. However, a new law came into place April 2019. It's called Frank's Law. If you have dementia below the age of 65, you qualify for state assistance. 65 does not apply when it comes to dementia. So if you know anybody below the age of 65 that has got dementia, are they applying for the right state benefits? And it's something to watch out for, because not everybody knows that that's a new law that's come into place. So if you do qualify for any of these, it's what's the financial assessment that you have to do. So whether it's care in your own house or care in a care home, you need to undergo a financial assessment. And that financial assessment, I would always recommend you get social work involved for that part of it to help with the financial assessment. There's paperwork to be done, and the financial assessment is based on whoever's in the house. So husband and wife, they will take all assets into account. If going back to the 28,500, if husband and wife is in the house, they will exclude the house from that £28,500 because the spouse that does not go into a home or does not need care assistance still needs a house to live in, so will not take the house into account, and will only assess the individual who needs care what capital they have in their bank. So if you've got a joint bank account with 30 grand in it, they will assume that's 15 grand each. So it's the total assets of that one individual that they will look at to assess, do you qualify to be a self-funder or not a self-funder? The financial assessment is roughly about 10 pages long. Social work's usually quite good to give you a hand to complete it, but we'd always recommend you get it done, because I've had a client recently who assumed all assets and all income would be based at 50% each, but evidence proved that if they took his income into account and put that all towards the care home, then she would have very little to live on in the house. So they've actually deemed in her instance that his income will be split 50-50. 50% will go towards his care fees and 50% will stay with her to help her with the household bills. The 12-week property disregard, that is to do with if you are single or widowed and you've still got a property, they will not take the house into account for the first 12 weeks. It should go into a care home, because again, the assessment, it's that long to get the assessment done, and also depending on how much cash you've got in the bank as at that time. Moving on. So the 6 ways of paying for care. Now I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of the 6 ways of the for and against. So the deferred payment scheme is actually the one that's not looked at the most, and that's basically because the local authority must agree to your house being sold at a later date to pay back any of the care fees that have been racked up. So it's really the local authority that will be out of pocket there then. So the deferred payment scheme is basically saying, I'm not going to pay for my care just now, I'll pay it once the house is sold. So it's not always in the favour of you, and that's why it's not looked upon that favourably. The next one that I speak a lot to clients about is again, it's mainly to do is if you've got a sole person or not much interest in the house. It's where you're thinking, well, I don't want to sell the house to pay my care fees. I'm going to a care home. I want to rent the property out, and the rental income that I receive will help pay for the care. The reason why it's better for sole individuals as opposed to joint is obviously one goes into a care home, one stays in the house. You don't really want to rent it out when your spouse is staying in the house. So it's really only looked at if there's an individual that we'd consider renting a property out. But the downside of it is, especially over this year, is tenants don't always pay the rent, or the government say they don't have to pay it for 3-4 months. So where it was good in the past, it probably gave you better returns than your bank would. And on the against side is if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, or the house needs more maintenance work done than what the rent provides, you could end up being short of cash, but it is an option. The other one I look at for clients, And this is really for clients that want to remain in their own house. I do this more for clients who want to remain in their own house for as long as they can, is equity release. And that's effectively saying is, I want to release X amount of equity that's in my house to help pay care in the future, or there and then. So I've had a client recently who was 90, and the children wanted the mum to stay in the house as long as she could. So we did an equity release to release the equity to allow her to get care in her own house. But the downside of that is she didn't have sufficient income to meet the interest every month. So the interest was accrued onto that debt. So eventually on her death, the house would have to be sold and the whole debt repaid, and the next account would get the remainder of the funds or the remainder of the equity at that time. Or if it got to a stage where mum could not stay in the house anymore and the family had said, right, mum's going to care home, the house has to be sold, because one of the equity release provisions there is if the individual goes into care, the equity release must be redeemed. But it's ideal to be considered for clients who want to stay in their house as long as they can. And we'd always say for equity release that the children are always talked to about this, because the biggest complaint in our industry is mum and dad didn't tell us we've got an equity release, and you've just got rid of all our cash that we thought we were going to get, or we're going to get the property. So we always recommend the families involved so they're aware of the situation. Another consideration is some clients of mine might be cash rich, asset poor, so i.e. the house might only be worth 80,000-90,000, but they've got a lot more in cash. It's weighing it up. Do you self-fund? Well, you need to if it's got a lot of money in cash. But where do you put the money to get a wee bit more interest? So there could be low interest rates, but it's accessible, but it's low returns, and over the years the money will depreciate. In some instances we say, well, how much does mum and dad need for care? Can we put 2 or 3 years aside for care costs in a low interest bank account, and the rest is invested? Because investing some cash actually makes the money potentially work more, but it depends on interest rates. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. Sorry. So it makes the cash work harder. And today's rates, you're actually getting better returns by investing. Downside of it is you don't know what the returns are because you're investing in stocks and shares, but also it fluctuates. And a lot of clients, as they get older, don't have the same exposure to risk as the ones did, and they might not accept a lot of risk for their investments. So saying all that, the sixth option is the one that we do a lot of, and it's immediate care plans. And these are really ideal for clients that have considered all the options of cash and investments and equity release. And it's where basically you are buying an annuity for life with the purpose to be able to fund for care. And how it works is you give up X amount of cash to buy an annuity, and that annuity guarantees to pay the care home or the care provider an income to cover your care forever and a day. So the actuaries of this care immediate care plan, they work out the probability of how long your next of kin might live for, and they work out how much cash you need to give up. I would say give up is basically if they say Mrs. X, well, we think life expectancy is 4 to 5 years. If they pass away before the 4 to 5 years, that capital is lost. However, if they live 7, 8, 9 years, the immediate care provider must continue to pay that income forever and a day. And I've got down on one of the foresights there is tax-free income. That's a bit of a yes and unknown. It should have an an asterisk next to it. It's a bit of a yes or no. It can be tax-free income to the care provider. It depends how it's paid to the provider. And the provider could be the good care group, it could be a care home. If that immediate care annuity is paid directly to the provider of care, it is tax-free. If it's paid to the family and then they pay it on to the provider, it is not tax-free, it's classed as income. So we're very clear on who pays tax and who doesn't pay tax. And in the last 10 to 12 years that I've been doing this, not one client has opted to have the money paid to them and then they pay it to whoever's looking after mum or dad, because it's more tax efficient to have it paid from the provider directly to the care home or the care group. So the best practice points that we'll look at is if you are seeking long-term care or looking at long-term care, the things that you need to look at is, first of all, look at ensure you claim all the relevant benefits that you can. And we would recommend you speak to organisations such as Age Scotland, Citizens Advice, Capability Scotland, Alzheimer's Scotland, anybody that you know is going to help you with like what you can claim for. I'm going through a case just now with a client. I'm working with a council to try and get extra things, and I'm proving evidence to say no, they're entitled to it, because the local authorities are on, or the DWP, they don't always tell you everything you can claim for. It's good to know a little because it might get a lot. One thing we would always suggest, and this is no matter which age group that you're in, you ensure you've got a will and a power of attorney arranged. Both of these must be made before you lose capacity, because once that's lost, you can't do those two documents. A will is good to ensure that your estate passes on to who you wish to in the event of death. A power of attorney, though, is there for when you're alive and ensures that you can give clear instructions of what you wish to happen in the event of you needing care, or in the event that you're unable to go to the bank, or in the event that you go abroad but you can't fly home and you get the bills to pay. So we always recommend you speak to a solicitor about that. Not everybody would look at immediate care annuity, but it is a consideration that everybody should look at or even just discuss. In my job, our job is to make people aware of everything and then rule out things that don't apply to them. So nothing's off the table, it's whittling it down what suits that client. Equity release doesn't suit everybody, but it's useful to have, and again, to discount if it's not appropriate. And go for the right advice. Ask for advice, speak to people, don't just take one person's view. I ask questions all the time to other people in my office, because it's only by asking things different people have different ideas. And then you've also got the self-directed support, where again it's having the choices. There's 4 areas you can go at. I'm going to do something else in that. I might type up a few notes in that, because I've not got it at hand just now. Why financial advice, or why choose SOLLA? Society of Later Life Advisors, which I am the regional coordinator for Scotland as well. It's SOLLA. We are trained specifically for older client advice. There only is 19 SOLLA advisors in Scotland. We're trying to get more people to actually set the qualifications, but it's because we speak to local authorities. I was on a call for 2 hours today with Age Scotland, finding all about the updates and about things that are going to come in for next year, not only for older clients, but also for children as well. So again, it's seeking that out. SOLLA, if you put that into the website and put in your postcode, it'll tell you the closest advisor that you can get. What I'm going to quickly do is, because I'm conscious of time, is I've got 3 case studies, but I'm just quickly going to rattle through 2 of them just to give you an idea. Next slide, please. So basically, these are 2 live cases. So a power of attorney was in place for this client. She had early onset of dementia. in a care home following falls, and she was assessed and she needed care assistance. Husband already passed away, so we were looking at what was the best option for her to pay this care. She's quite a lot of cash on hand, so we completed an immediate care annuity form, and what we do is one form is circulated around all the immediate care annuity providers, and the quotes came back between £212,000 and £235,000. After a bit of discussion between all the providers, we managed to get the cost down to £200,000, which basically meant this individual's next of kin would give the provider of the annuity £200,000, but that would provide an income of £117 per month, which would take roughly 5 years to break even with that. It saved them so we saved them 12 grand from the initial quote. We'd kept 80,000 as cash for any ad hoc expenses, but the beauty of that was, at the end of the day, they knew that if mum had a long life here, they predicted that if she lived more than 5 years, the immediate care annuity provider would have to continue paying £3,117 per month for the rest of her life. So they were basically saying, well, if she passed away in the first five years, we've kind of lost that, but if she survives more than 5 years, then it's worth it. Next case study was another client I spoke to, Mrs. Williams. Again, it was through a solicitor. We sold the house, but after we did her immediate care annuity quotation, because of her health questions that came back, the life expectancy was only 2 to 3 years, and we'd worked out the break even was going to be 4.8 years. So it wasn't the best view to do an immediate care annuity. So we recommended in this instance, it's better to keep 2 years aside to cover the immediate care for 2 years, and would invest a wee bit of it to get a wee bit higher growth. So then in 2 years' time, if that needed topped up, then we could top it out of investments. So we immediately ruled out immediate care annuity because of her life expectancy, and went down the route of cash and investments. I'm not going to do the next case study because it's a bit more in depth. I'll go on a few slides, and basically just a wee bit about me, and then we're going to quick question and answer. Chase de Vere, I've been working with them now 12 years, and Chase de Vere's been around since 1969. And Chase de Vere are independent financial advisors. We're owned by Swiss Life, and we've been around, well, as I say, that's 50 odd years now we've been around, and I deal a lot with older clients. We don't always deal with older clients. We deal with private wealth. So we look at pensions, inheritance tax, investments, anything to do with any clients at all. It's just I specialise in the older clients, and that is, again, it's not all about long-term care, it's about mitigation of tax, and that is inheritance tax, capital gains tax, etc. Completely independent. We're not restricted, which means we can look at various places to source the best advice for you at that time. And as you probably saw from the slide right at the beginning, I recently won for the second year in a row the Women in Financial Advisor of the Year award for 2019 and 2020. And it's only with the support of Chase de Vere that they promote females to look outside the box and look at long-term care and look at older clients. And I think through a bigger organisation, it helps. But I would always say, please speak to somebody. Look at all your options. Just because I work for Chase de Vere, I am also a SOLLA advisor as well. And I've got some clients that'll say, oh, I don't want to speak to a female, I want to speak to a man. That's fine. I can put you in touch with somebody else, depending on what suits you. So that's the slides over with. I'm going to put my camera back on again and see if there's any questions and answers that people may have. Just bear with me. So, Rebecca, do we have any?
Thanks, Catriona. So we've slightly ran over, but we'll try and, I think there's just a couple of questions here. So when is the best time to get a POA, so a power of attorney, in place?
Any time's a good time, because a lot of people think you need it for older clients, whereas just now, and I'll admit this, I don't have one just now, but my other half does. I've got a child, so what happens if anything happens to me? Who looks after my child? So it should be for any age group at any time.
So the sooner the better.
Yes.
Also, to arrange an assessment for funding, so the local authority, how do people just go about organising that? Who's the best person to contact when looking for a sort of funding or a financial assessment?
Well, I'm going to say it depends which area you're in. Some clients come to a financial advisor first to get a feel for it, to see what I've got, it isn't the right place. And then I would say, right, you need to go to your local authorities, social work, and ask for the individual to be assessed. Because they'll also do an assessment to say, do they actually need to move out of the house as well? So they'll do them both together. But some clients are frightened to go down that route until they've had their own finances looked at, in case they're telling the local authority too much or too little. So I would say a quick chat on the phone with a financial advisor or citizens advice would give them the next step to do. I need to tell them everything, and what do I need to tell them, and just peace of mind.
And so far, just one more question, just around what option would be best to choose for self-directed support? So, I mean, I can try and answer a wee bit of that. So for live-in for live-in care, normally when we're speaking to potential clients, we normally say choose option 1 or 2 of your self-directed support. So either that the money's paid directly to you as a client and then passed over to your provider, or option 2 is it paid directly to the provider and you top up if needed. You would top up the rest as a self-funder. So I hope you'd agree with that, Catriona. That's normally what we do at this moment in time.
And that's the exact same as what you do for an immediate care annuity as well. You get the 2 options. It's just what's the best for tax. That's the only difference.
Great. I don't think we have any other questions in the chat function. So I think it just leaves me to say thank you very much to Catriona. Thank you for joining us this evening. Very helpful and very informative on a very difficult topic and subject for most people. To our participants, our attendees, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and you will receive by email a copy of the webinar and the presentation. I really hope you've enjoyed this evening, and again, just thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Bye.